sneaky suspicion that something's not going to happen properly. I'm live.
Okay.
You know,
let's see what happens.
It says we are now streaming live on Facebook. Joe, can you just check that on your Facebook to make sure if we are? If we are, hello everybody. Welcome to the weekday show.
I think I found a different Tim Wade.
Yes. And now that we've done that giant hello, we're just going to check if we're actually online or not.
It says live on Facebook.
It is great. Well, hi everybody, and welcome to the show. I've said that already, but I'm saying it again because I'm absolutely not convinced we're live.
I can assure you that we're live, and I am one of two viewers.
Great. Well, I'm the other one. So we have Joe Augustin. Joe, how's your week been?
My week has been interesting. It's been a quiet and yet very busy week at the same time. I think a lot of that's been my own doing, and I am actually rather pleased that that is the way it has turned out. I'd rather be busy than not at this time.
Yeah, I'd rather be busy than not. I'm finding myself being busy on things that I wasn't busy on before. If that makes any sense. But it's been a really weird week. The markets have had a crazy week where like Monday, one thing was happening, and then all the other days, everything else happened, and it ruined my week. But other than that, we've got challenging times at the moment where leaders, people, employees, everybody is isolated, working from home. Different parts of the world are going through this as well. And we're finding some challenges with, we're finding ourselves facing new challenges with how do we communicate with each other? How do we have these sorts of conversations? And today, even though today is Friday and it is our week in review, our Friday 45, we have a special guest all the way over from Dubai. Well, he's not over there. Well, he is in Dubai. He's in Dubai. And it's Rohit Bassi. Welcome, Rohit.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me be on this show.
We did have to let you on the show. That's true.
No, you had no choice. Last minute.
Everything's last minute. It's the last minute show with Tim and Joe. Yeah, Rohit. Now, Rohit's a communication specialist. He's employed by organizations, leaders. He coaches leaders in communication strategies. He's hired to go in and train teams in communicating, whether it's a sales scenario or a crisis scenario, a leadership scenario, a media scenario. And he goes on stage and talks about communication as well. Rohit, first of all, I guess, how are you? How's the family, and how's Dubai?
Okay. It's sunshine over here. Everyone is stay home. That's what we are. Hashtag stay home. The government's done an extremely good job in the way they've managed everything, making sure the information is communicated. People are following what is required. Yes, there have been some people who have not followed. Like I was talking to you, Tim, earlier. One person has been put behind bars. This is an influencer who said, you don't need to stay home, go out for a jog, do this, define what the government is saying. And yes, she's behind bars at the moment. And there've been other cases as well in the past 3 days. But this was the biggest case which has happened over here in terms of what's happening. So the government's been very good in communicating the message, what we need to do. It's just people need to follow it.
Yeah.
It's one of those challenging situations, yeah. Listen, I'm going to just take a moment here to invite anyone who's right now watching, because I can see there are a bunch of people who are watching. Could you say hello as well so we know who we have with us here on Facebook Live? The idea of the show, by the way, is kind of to help people know that they're not by themselves. You know, I think in this time, everybody's got their own things, their own concerns, and it can feel that it is something that you're doing all by yourself. But at the same time, we think that there are a lot of people who actually, could do with this kind of contact. And the objective of this show is very simple. It's to make things better, because most times when you get out there, when someone's complaining about stuff, they're going to make a lot of noise, maybe question this or that or whatever it is. And very seldom is someone going to come up and say, here's some solutions. So we want to welcome you along, and we'd like to know, if you can, who you are. So if you wouldn't mind, just say hello on the chat so we can see who you are. Rohit, so in terms of communication, this has been a very interesting week, and I wanted to just bring this up. This is something that I just saw not too long ago. And I'm just going to play it, and everybody on the call is going to see this on their screen, hopefully. This is something that just, I think, recently came out. It's about communications, but it has to do with the Fox News network. So I apologize in advance if you're going to get triggered by the very name or existence of the Fox network. Do we have time for a little bit of a video, Tim?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so just watch this in terms of what they've been doing regarding the coronavirus.
Scaring the living hell out of people, and I see it again as like, oh, let's bludgeon Trump with this new hoax. By the way, this program has always taken the coronavirus seriously, and we've never called the virus a hoax.
I feel like the more I learn about this, the less there is to worry about.
I was about to say the same thing. Let me tell you something. This virus should be compared to the flu because at worst case scenario, it could be the flu.
So all the talk about coronavirus being so much more deadly doesn't reflect reality. Without a vaccine, the flu would be far more deadly.
This is yet another attempt to impeach the president. And sadly, it seems they care very little for any of the destruction they are leaving in their wake.
We don't have immunity to this virus. It's a new virus. It's a pandemic strain of a virus we haven't seen before.
You know, it's critical we know who has this. We must test for the virus in order to stop the spread of it.
We are facing an incredibly contagious and dangerous virus that is moving across the world from one hotspot to another.
We kind of laugh at it, but nothing to laugh at here. By the way, this program has always taken the coronavirus seriously, and we've never called the virus a hoax. It's like, oh, let's bludgeon Trump with this new hoax.
I'm not afraid of the coronavirus, and no one else should be that afraid either.
I am responsible for transmitting accurate messaging and information.
I was pretty calm before all this, but then I got a little less calm when people told me to stay calm.
The heat is boiling over.
Democrats and their media minions are even trying to blame President Trump for the global coronavirus.
Anything to attack President Trump. It's the Trump virus. What are you talking about?
You know,
Ebola. He's imported Ebola into America.
I look at Ebola as a medical terrorist.
There's no reason to panic at all.
There's tons of hyperbole and speculation, none of which is helpful at all.
The entire problem we're having is due to panic, not the virus.
Okay, I think you know how the rest of that goes.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the only thing I would say from those sorts of things is, if you and I were talking about this virus back in January, we would have probably said, look, it's pretty serious, but it looks like it has it's more virulent but less deadly than the flu. We would have said the same thing because that was the information we were getting. That's certainly what I was saying. And now you can look at the numbers, and the numbers are 46,000 dead, 500,000 people having it. That's 23,000 dead, 500,000 having, something like that. So it's a 4.6% death rate rather than a 0.1% death rate that it was before. So it's like, the thing is, these agencies have got an agenda, and the agenda is to get people riled up on one side of the argument or the other. And the fact is that these high-profile people are on television saying what they've heard and what they've been told at the time. But there is, is your point miscommunication? Is your point just frenzied?
Well, I was wondering about this from a communications point of view, how Rohit looks at this, because here's an organization basically that, first of all, I mean, purports itself to be a news organization. And for those who accept that it's a source of news, great. You know, it's a source of news. But to within a span of a week to do a complete turnaround, you know, in terms of where you talk about maybe some caution or not. This is not about some caution to a lot of caution. This is about no caution. It is a hoax. You know, you basically turn the narrative completely on its head, making the whole thing about, you know, another team trying to put bad light on you and all that. And then within a week, now you've switched the tune. You have to go the other way. And I'm thinking, just from a communications point of view, how does this continue to happen? How does it still go on if someone is able to say that they're not even saying that they were wrong, they're just outright lying that they didn't say they were wrong?
Yeah,
it's a good question, and it comes down to a simple thing: is everyone has a hidden agenda when it comes to, especially when it comes to politics. And putting that aside, what is important over here is taking care of the human race at the moment. And WHO said a long time ago to all the countries, please start looking at this very carefully. It will turn into a pandemic if we are not going to take care of it. They already gave the warnings. So is it something to do with the leadership communication that they did not trickle the information down, given the information correctly? Each government worked it their own way. You look at Singapore, from what I've heard, they've done a pretty decent job in the way they've communicated the information to its people. You look at Vietnam, for example, they started around Tet, Chinese New Year's. That's when it started really going across the globe. What Vietnam literally did was shut down all the schools, and they started putting restrictions. Now, from what I know about Vietnam, because my partner is from Vietnam, and I've seen how it works, as a whole, it is considered, even in stats and so forth, quite a corrupt nation in many ways. Yet look at them, how they managed to take care of this. You look at, for example, Korea, for example, how they started mobile testing. Okay, and it was really fast moving, the virus in Korea. Now, you look at all of that, what happened was some kind of miscommunication has happened, be it because they might have a hidden agenda, be it because, they just want to make people think everything's okay. At the end of the day, when there is a crisis, transparency is extremely important, because it is the safety for the whole nation, for the whole population. And it seems some transparency has not happened across the different nations. Countries which have given the transparency, they have taken the necessary steps and action to move forward with it.
Do you think, Rohit, that this is, like, business is a microcosm of this? You can see this in an organization where there is an organizational hierarchy, and some key people here who are closest to the numbers, who are closest to the customers, who are closest to whatever piece of information that needs to be heard by people at the top, find out, and they try to tell it to the people at the top, and it's being blocked at various levels because of relationship conflicts between people in these hierarchies, and they don't have access to the people at the top that are making these decisions. And it's because of perceived leadership hierarchies in different parts of the world and different organizations in the world that people aren't listening to what's going on. Now, for example, and this is a health scare. So the health one should be taken slightly differently. There's two that should probably, and there's probably more, two should be taken differently. Something to do with health, something to do with climate. Probably those ones are global. And the health one, it's coming from, like, WHO, somebody, an expert or a leader in there is saying, you should do this. Do you think some leaders are going, they can't tell me what to do? Or they shouldn't be telling me what to do? Or if the opposition party are the ones that are hearing it first and going, hey guys, you should do something about this. We're kind of on the same team when it comes to this sort of thing. The other guys are saying they're not on the same team. They're trying to derail us secretly. And so it's because of those fractured relationships when it comes down to politicking that people are making unwise defensive decisions like hoax calling and whatever it is before listening to the science seriously.
There is, I mean, from what you've said, there is definitely that issue with the relationship between the different parties. You may have different opposite views on things, but now let's look at the whole. Let's take an organization. The whole point of an organization is to reach a certain objective, certain goal. Now look at the community. It's to live in harmony and get along and collaborate. Now look at the whole nation. It's all about collaborating, getting along and moving on and growing and getting things done. Now, we will have different of opinions, but at the end of the day, we have to come down to some agreement to move forward, because this is impacting not just a single person, it's impacted the whole globe. So something is definitely up with the communication. And usually when communication is all messed up is because of this personality clashes, the egos and the judgments coming in the way. Drop the egos, drop the judgments, get the focus is to make sure people are safe. So let's get them safe.
Do you think the challenge is we don't trust what's true anymore?
100%. There is so much, what is deemed as fake news through media, social media. We actually, these institutes which we are meant to put trust and faith in for our safety and our well-being, we start questioning them. Why? Is it because something which has happened in the past and they did not admit to it and they still continue to act in the same way? Like what Joe said in the beginning is, why haven't they just said, okay, we were wrong and let's move on and let's get it right? Okay, so yes, there is that breaking of trust. And this is where I would say conscious leadership is very important. Trust is the base of it. Anything requires trust. A relationship, a communication requires trust. The moment the trust breaks, we always wonder, oh, are they telling us the truth or are they messing around with us? You look at a relationship with a husband and wife, with your parents, with your colleagues, with your customer. As soon as the trust breaks, it's difficult to mend it. But when you actually admit, yes, we made a mistake and this is what we're doing to resolve it, let's move on and let's improve from it. So yeah, there is a trust issue, 100%.
So one of the things that I'm hearing about now is about this trust issue and how if you betray or if you've let them down, you should lose the trust. There's also this thing about human beings, though. We have a truth bias. We actually have a tendency to want to believe people, and I'm actually thinking about this in terms of the people who continue to not trust or continue to trust who they might be better served if they did not trust. And that's one of the big challenges for me, because I watch what's happening, and I have friends who are in the US, and they've bought seriously into the narrative. They're very much in Trump country. And for them, it is actually how they fit things into that narrative that they've got for themselves. So, I'm always talking for myself. I'm always talking about the narrative, the power of narrative. Someone absolutely believes that this is the world that they live in. These are the things, the circumstances that they have to deal with, and because they believe that bigger picture, they try to rationalize things within that picture. So, I just prepared some other video as well, and I'm also surprised by this, as in like how people can look at stuff like this and just believe it and say this absolutely happened. By the way, I don't know whether you saw our trailer. I was talking about how blessed we were, how wonderful it was that we had followed Trump's advice, why Singapore is in such a good condition. If you're wondering what that was about, this might explain it.
They're suggesting a possible second wave in that island nation. How do you gauge that?
Well, remember in Singapore, they took the president's guidelines and they executed them very early because they could see China next door. And so they saw those and they implemented those guidelines. So very few people became infected in Singapore. Because so few people have been infected, you don't have what they call herd immunity. And so until we get through this current pandemic, if it has seasonality, which we hope and believe it could, if it gets through this current season, it will be in everybody's best interest to do as the president has recommended, our work on vaccines, our work on additional therapeutics, and really getting to both pre and post prophylaxis. So,
in case there's any doubt, she wasn't referring to Halima Yaqub when she said president.
What a
Speechless.
I was going to say, I mean, it just either it was a slip, like they've followed the same advice that the president has given our nation, but it did sound like the president somehow managed to give Singapore the advice 2 months before he gave it to his own country, which just also is idiotic. But anyway, they're claiming credit for Singapore. Good on him. It's whatever.
So what I see is happening over here is literally damage control. Yeah, something has been done and it needs to be cleaned up. And this is the message I'm getting. Now, for me, I don't care which president, prime minister, whatever they're saying is, as long as we find a solution to resolve this challenge which we're facing. Simple as that. It is whoever's given the advice, great. It's not about he did that or she did that or we did that. This is creating more conflict and more crisis. It is not resolving the issue. Everyone needs to be on the same page. Simple as that. Stop your egos, stop your judgment, just focus on getting the task done. If you are being asked to stay at home, and literally everyone in the globe is being asked to stay at home, there must be a reason behind it, okay? If it's turned into a pandemic, there's a reason behind it and there is a way to resolve it, or we believe this is the way. Let's give it a go and see what happens. We have no other choice. We've never faced such an issue before. And it's on a global basis. It's not like the Spanish flu, which happened in a certain part of the world. And at that time, no one was even aware of it because we didn't have social media. But we have social media, we've got media to help us. And now it's giving that right information and just following certain rules. Now, Tim talked about freedom. With freedom, there's certain responsibility. This was when we were speaking offline, we talked about freedom. If you've got freedom, there's certain responsibilities we have towards each other, towards the human race, towards everything. We know it's nature has dealt its cards. That's it. We have to deal with these cards now. And this is the right time for us to see everything what we're doing as a human race, not just with each other, but with all the energies, the plants, the food, the climate. What are we doing? Are we actually being constructive towards them? Are we being destructive? And we all know the answer behind that is most of the times as a human race, we are destructive because we're only thinking about ourselves. But think about it. All these microorganisms exist in us. Here comes a virus who wants to come and live in us. Yeah. It's not there to kill us. It's there to live in us. But at the same time, and I'm not a medical profession, but if you put in simple terms, it's come to live in us and our immune systems are not able to take it. And therefore, we are finding a way to get rid of it, or manage it to curb it down. Now, if all governments and all leaders are going to say, no, look at my country, we're doing such a great job. Look at my country, we're doing stop that. Help each other out. Because we are interdependent on each other.
So you're saying put ego aside and let's work on this together.
Absolutely.
Okay.
This is the only way we can do it.
I agree. We should put ego aside. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that it was me who actually came up with the 30-day cure. And this was on the 14th of March at 9:18 p.m., where I said, how to rid the world of COVID-19 in 30 days. Let me read it. You can go to my Facebook page and find out. And then after this, I'll put ego aside. Step 1, everyone in the whole world has to stay at home in April and not leave their house for any reason. This is on the 14th of March. Everyone except half the doctors and police who will first stay at home for the rest of March. And then the other half will come out after that. Step 2, there is no need for step 2, but since we have a step 2, measure the impact on the climate during April and see if there's something we could do together next.
You are the guru.
Huh?
You are the guru. You are the enlightened one.
So I'm glad that President Trump is following this Singapore permanent resident's advice and is finally implementing my plan. And now I think we should all put ego on the side now that I've had the last word.
Okay, let me just turn off my emotional reaction indicator. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I left it on.
Now, remember, that is the Hebrew word for awesome. We've established that already.
Yeah. No, but one of the things that I think is really important about communication, and this is a skill, it's not just about getting the message out, I think. This is people tend to think it's always about the message. Does the message land? I think it's also about the impact of what you are saying when it lands. So, all the things you're talking about getting ego and helping people come together, I think that's the real finer art of communication, as in what's happening or what's not happening right now. For instance, between President Trump and Governor Cuomo of New York, and the governor, I'm going to say, is doing a good job rallying in terms of what New York needs to hear and what they have to speak about, and he is raising his voice and putting up his hand, in as it were. But he's doing it in a way as well that is rubbing Trump the wrong way, and Trump wants to be rubbed the wrong way, if you know what I'm saying, and reacting in that way as well. There's too much drama going on. I'm just thinking about how much energy is going into emotional reactions. I'm taking stock of myself as well in terms of how much time in my day is spent being angry about this. And the thought or the revelation came last night as I was watching another Facebook Live, this time by a couple who was talking about your emotional state and how you can be you can get into an angry state. And then they talk about this radical idea of coming out of this state almost as quickly as that as well. You can get angry and you can get unangry just like that if you decide that that's what you're going to do. But it's not something that most people are going to do. Most people are just going to be stuck in that emotional state that they get put into by somebody else's action. And I like to think of it as an external violence, which frankly, a lot of people are allowed to get away with. And I don't even want to mention again, the guy who is responsible right now for causing that violence on I would say even a worldwide scale.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say he's causing it, but he is certainly an influencer. And but I do like the power of using the term violence in our expression and in our communication, because passive-aggressive communication could be regarded as an act of violence, just as lying can be regarded, if we term it, as an act of violence against the people. And if media is framed as expressing in an act of violence against the people that are watching it, the people watching it might just go, well, hang on a minute, are they being violent to me? They're feeding me stuff in here. Is that an act of violence for me to be riled up in a sort of way and start to get a little bit angry? I think tempering our media, I mean, maybe one of the solutions is tempering our media, or ensuring that we have a broader input from various sources to get a bit more of a broader perspective. Might be useful. But is the emotional, what do you think, Rohit, the emotional side of this?
Okay, so like you, like everyone, I've been seeing things on TV, I've seen on radio. For me, I have a cutoff point. I just want to know what is the best way to prevent it. I'm not going to get into the politics of things, into the bureaucracy of things. I'm going to see what are the possible ways to prevent. That's what my focus is. I'll give you just an example. The other day, I got these videos on WhatsApp on simple thing, blaming the Chinese people for this happening. This is going to cause racial violence, discrimination.
It already is.
Yeah, and it is already is, and it's across the globe. And I created a quick video yesterday and said, okay, this is just a humble request. Please stop sending these videos out there, because it is emotionally triggering the negative or the downwards emotions in someone, and it is going to cause grief. we understand why you're doing this, you know, from a joke perspective, but it's not helping the situation. This is not the time for this. It is a time to be a bit more empathetic and sensitive around the environment, not just nilly-willy send these videos out. And these are from some close friends of mine, and they're like, you're being very sensitive. I'm saying, I'm not being sensitive. This is sending a communication message out there of trouble, xenophobia. It is already causing violence, and you're going to make this situation. Some person, some bird brain out there is going to get that video, listen to it, finds the closest person who looks similar to a Chinese or even a Chinese, and starts racially abusing and beating them up. And they don't have a clue because they've never left their own country. Yeah, because they might be of that heritage, but they're not from that country. What are you doing? Use your sensibility. Use your sensibility over here. It's like during the 9/11. People looked at anyone of this skin color and labeled them as a terrorist. I was in the UK at that time. I'm born and brought up in the UK, and I was profiled by the police while I was walking to the station because guess what? I was wearing a rucksack and I fit kind of the bill. So I got profiled. Okay, it was not racial discrimination. They were just doing their due diligence. Fair enough. Done. But people are creating violence just through this small communication, getting themselves emotionally triggered. Think about what you're doing.
But the people, would it, I mean, there's two thoughts. So one was there was a Singapore student over in the UK who was beaten up by a bunch of Brits, and they were like, you know, don't bring your coronavirus here. And then they went and put their hands all over him, which was a bit stupid. So you look at the sensibilities of the people that are doing it, but at the same time, the people who are going to send out those videos on social media are going to be the ones that are thinking that way anyway and have some sort of xenophobic or fear of others taking what they think is rightfully theirs or ruining their life and not taking personal responsibility for where they're at and what they can do differently. And I think sometimes us going out with those sorts of messages of guys, don't do this, even though it is an interesting one, because if we do just go, haha, that's funny, we could be we might need to be careful. So, I mean, I look at some of my humor and I just like, I don't know whether I can put that one out because this could be taken the wrong way. And so not that one, but this one's okay. This one's sort of, you know, pretty obvious. Yeah. What do you think? Rohit, what would you say, or how would you coach an influencer from the WHO or even a medical leader? How would they get their opinion across to the Boris Johnsons, the Trumps, and their administrations, to be fair to those two, the ScoMos in Australia, these guys? How would you coach the person trying to get through to these guys? How would you coach them? What would you say to them about communication? Okay, so on the communication side, it's very clear for me in any communication, it doesn't have to be a crisis. It's at any time when you do it, is you got to have empathy. You know, you got to have the compassion in what you're saying. What is the context? What are you relating it to? Transparency is very, very crucial at this moment. And what are the actions which are taken? It could be small actions. We're not talking about massive actions, just small actions which can be taken to resolve the issue. Now, again, when all this was happening, I got a video out which just came up to mind. What is the simplest way to actually explain what's people? So I came something called SMILE. And people are like, SMILE in this situation? Well, if you look at it, it's an acronym for me, which I've said is, the S is serve and support. What is the best way you can serve and support, i.e. help each other? So serve and support yourself and serve and support the community. If we are being requested to stay at home, stay at home. We are being requested to be careful, just get your deliveries done from online or just down the road, quickly coming back, do that. Serve and support yourself and the community. We're looking at both of that. The M is for mesmerize. Look at what's happening around yourself, okay? We have now got a time to reflect about our life and reflect what's happening in nature. And it's not just about the human race, it's about the whole planet as a whole. Truthfully,
if we all die, the planet is still going to exist. Yeah, it's going to live again, and another conscious being will born again. So
dolphins
we are not the masters of this planet. We have to collaborate with everything around us. So we need to be looking at reflecting us. Serve and support. We need to actually mesmerize with whatever's going on, be in the present, and help each other out. So then you've got to be in spirit. Whatever you're going to do is find the purpose behind it. Why am I doing that? What is this going to help? How is it going to serve and support someone else? Then how you're living your life. Unfortunately, we become a society of such a goal-orientated society. There's nothing wrong with goals. You can get the accolades and the applauses behind it. But here's the thing. How are you living your life on a day-to-day basis? How you are, again, serving and supporting yourself and the community around you, the whole global community, just not the person down the road. What can you do to support? And the last is the E, the energy. How are you using your energy? Are you using your energy towards looking at all the nasty news and the fake news and focusing I'm not going to trust this person? Or are you going to shift yourself and use your energy to see, okay, what are the infinite possibilities out of this? How can I change my behavior? How can I communicate better with people? How can I actually check up on people? Okay, see, Dubai is a place where it's a modern city. It's last week we got Zoom to work. Otherwise Zoom is not allowed to cannot work. It only works in businesses. We are not allowed to use WhatsApp audio or WhatsApp video. It's banned. It's not allowed over here. Whatever security, telecommunication reasons, what they've said, they're not going to do it. But since last week, they've allowed us to use Zoom. They've allowed us to use Microsoft Teams and some of the other online softwares. They've also introduced, I think, a Voice UAE, which allows you to make those video chats with your loved ones within the country without having expensive bills of calling each other.
Great.
So go out and see how are you using your energy? Look at your energy. Are you connecting with the people around you? Are you, seeing they're okay? Just do a check-in. It's in a situation like this, you get your serve and support. You look at, what's happening around, you mesmerize yourself with what's going all around yourself. You be in spirit. What is the whole purpose of this? From way I look at it, there's a higher purpose of this, what's happening. We need to reflect on what's going on. Even with all the leadership stuff which is happening, the way the governments are behaving with each other, it is a reflection on all the community saying, do we really want to elect people like this and follow them? It's a lesson.
I think this is a massive lesson that's coming from this. I hope it is. Anyway, I hope it's a lesson.
Yeah. So do we really want to think about that? And how are we consuming our energy is very crucial. Now, what we're doing over here is we're having a simple discussion on how we can help each other. Hopefully someone through this talk, through this interview will go out and say, okay, I need to reflect on how I am supporting the community, how I'm serving the community, how I'm serving myself and how I'm supporting myself. That's the whole purpose. And rather than looking at, and this is what we were talking about, yeah, you can do a binge of Netflix, you can do a binge of Facebook and all that. How long are you going to keep on doing that?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing constructive? And that constructive doesn't mean that I've got a goal to achieve. It's just using your time more productively that will help you help yourself and help someone else out there.
I'm just going to say that for myself, right? I mean, I do try to kind of mix it up a little bit. So it's Netflix and then some YouTube and then videos.
I binge watched Joe.
Yeah. Over and over again.
I would love to binge watch Joe.
No, but one of the things that I think is happening right now is the world is also, while being tested with this particular virus, it is being tested because we are at this confluence of technology. As in, like, on the one hand, you've got all this great technology that allows people to stay in contact. On the other hand, you have this technology that allows all these people to stay in contact.
Yeah.
You know, it's really the combination because and by the way, I just want to make sure that we're on the right track as well. You know, like the Spanish flu really is one of those flus that people did not know all that much about because of the timing of it. It was intertwined with the First World War.
It was the language. It was all in Spanish.
It had subtitles, and that was the most difficult thing about the show. It was black and white. It had subtitles, and they were Spanish. No, anyway. So
they were shooting nighttime scenes in daylight and just reducing the white balance.
Now, back to the reality of it. So the Spanish flu actually was this huge pandemic that influenced the whole world. So in terms of the number of people who were infected, it wasn't just one of those things that happened in a small place. The name is a misnomer. Spain was the first country to acknowledge the existence of this particular flu. But through from 1918 to 1920, basically, this flu spread around the world. They estimate just for the U.S., 150 million U.S. People were probably infected by this, and globally, 50,000 deaths. But what I wanted to do is just draw this parallel about how in that time they had a different set of situations. They had circumstances that made it uncomfortable and inconvenient to talk about this healthcare emergency because they were stuck in this war with each other. And right now, we seem to be in a different state altogether. We're not at loggerheads based on the usual sort of war scenarios, but we do have some cross-border animosities, and the egos are being riled up. And right now, we're going into a protective state. We're trying to protect ourselves, and we're once again faced with scarcity. You know, the challenge, like I said, the double-edged sword, right? On one hand, we're in community, we can talk to each other. And on the other hand, it's the people who are able, because of this new age, this technology right now, where they can just express themselves without having to go through kind of a filter or any kind of committee or other social sort of, you know, like a committee that says that this is the right thing or it's okay to do. Opinions that we used to hold more to ourselves in private now become public. And I think that's the challenge that we have to face. We have
the filter is off.
Yes.
The filter is off and consequences are low. And not everybody who's in a situation right now where what they say can be amplified and taken to such heart is taking the responsibility for it. They're kind of saying that my responsibility ends with me communicating this. None of the impact of what I'm saying is my responsibility. I just want to make sure that at this point, as I say it, it's clear as it goes out to you. And what happens after that? Well, these are just words.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, by the way, we got one of the comments online from Lydia was that 50 million died in the Spanish flu.
I wasn't sure about the number. I thought 50 million. I thought to myself in this moment, like, it's too many people. But, you know, if Lydia's got that, then she's got that. Plus, she has your surname, so she must be right.
Yeah, even if she's wrong, I'm agreeing with her. Look, you know, Rohit came up with the SMILE model about serve, support, mesmerize, in spirit, living life, and energy. While he was saying that, I also came up with a model, and I think it's a model of communicating to these leaders, and it's the SICK model. So S-I-C-K. So the S is share a fact, a verifiable fact, and implement a solution. So here's the fact, here's the implementable solution, and then you craft a win for them so that they can say, here's the fact, here's the solution, and here's how we've got to win. And when I say craft a win, I don't mean come up with a win like we told Singapore what to do, because that's just nonsense. But craft a win for yourself, craft a credible win. And then the final one is, and so that's kind of all of it, but then the final one is kindness in community, which I think is where Rohit was going. And that ultimately we need that kindness in community. We're hearing stories about people fighting over toilet paper, but we're hearing these beautiful kindness stories. And there's this Facebook group, if you're not a member of it, go and become a member of it. It's fantastic, called The Kindness Pandemic, which is really, really nice. A lot of good news stories in there. And I think, but one of the ones that I saw recently, which I thought was hilarious, was also how to craft a solution with even people fighting over toilet paper. One of the things I posted recently was that shop in Redfern in New South Wales, in part of Sydney, where they've got one roll of toilet paper for $2 or whatever it is, and you can buy the second roll for $99. So if you want more than one packet or one bunch of it, if you want more than one, it's going to cost you $100, you know. And so people go, well, no, I won't now. I won't. I will leave it for somebody else, which I just think is just amazing. I mean, approach people where they're at. And if they're going to do things like buy all the toilet paper and then start selling it out of the back of their car, they're thinking opportunistically, which is clever, but not in a global crisis. In a global crisis, care trumps cleverness or craftiness. Care trumps, I really shouldn't use the word Trump, but I am. Care trumps opportunism. And ultimately, we need to get to that point of, you know, be safe, be careful, but be care-filled. It's been something I've been trumpeting, did it again, for a little while, but be care-filled. How can we do that more? How can we be more care-filled?
Well, you know, this is the thing that I've been asking myself as well, as in, like, how can this moment be better for somebody else? You know, that really is something. If you began to think about not just the time that we're in right now, but everything in general, if you could figure out a way for how this moment is going to be better, that'd be great. One of the ideas that I've been trying to promote is how to have other people realize that really that is what other people are trying to do as well. I think we're very much driven, or at least, you know, inclined to think of other people as competitors, people who are trying to get more for themselves. And it may be true, but it doesn't mean it's universally true. As in, I think there are more people out there who would, given an opportunity to do good without paying a price for it, they would choose to do good instead of something else, right? So if we can have a community that is more inclined towards that, if from a social proof point of view, that is the cooler thing to do, that's lauded, and that we sing their praises. And if there was some way as well that you know, that financial benefits could go to somebody for doing good, that would be a fantastic economic system. So instead of making money because you were able to exploit somebody else, because you were able to help somebody else, the system would reward you. That would change things quite radically.
It's in spiritual beliefs. It's treasures in heaven. But it would be interesting to see the economic impact of that. Of course, if somebody was given some economic reward for doing that, what would be really interesting is how many of those people that receive that just give it away again. That would be the other thing that I would see probably happening, but it would be great. I mean, we do see social enterprises everywhere trying to help, and people on the ground trying to help. In fact, Rohit and I were having a discussion a little bit earlier about giving and giving mechanisms and how that works in different parts of the world. One of the ones I'm very passionate about is the Buy One, Give One movement, which is at b1g1.com, and for small business owners and anybody really to become a member of that, and then all their giving goes directly to charities. And some of the work that we're all doing in some of the programs that we're doing right now, especially in this crisis, is helping take care of Cambodian girls and keeping them out of the sex trafficking industry, or out of the crafty hands of those guys. Especially since school is closed down and those girls are now out of school again, where one of the strategies was to keep them in school. So I'm intrigued about, it sounds, Joe, like you're talking about almost a shift in the economic system in a sense.
Well, what I'm thinking about, and this is, I think we've kind of veered off topic about communication, is, like the way Bhutan has been able to exist as kind of an outlier in the rest of the world in terms of how they look at things and how they're able to approach things. It's not that it's a perfect utopian kind of society, but the fact that they have been able to carve out their own niche, or at least the kingdom has its own niche in terms of approach to emotions and the treasuring of happiness. I just wish that there is some way for this kind of sea change to happen. And I think, to be fair, it really has to be what a majority wants. I don't want to be imposing myself on somebody else as well. As much as I think it's a great idea, if not everybody really thinks it's a great idea, then there really is.
They should.
Well, they should, and if they don't, we'll lock them up, right? But
we will isolate them for 14 days.
Oh.
So, Joe, I'm in agreement with what you're saying is, and yes, I'm sure Bhutan has some challenges, and what I've heard is always the good side of what goes over there. Even as a tourist, I think there's a certain amount of money you have to pay per day if you're going to stay there. I don't know what that amount is.
Happiness tax.
Yeah. So one of the things is, if you look at, I'm not talking totally from there is a science behind it, but I'm going to explain it from a holistic perspective, is most of the global governments, most of the world, even us as individuals, tend to work from this fear perspective, the fear state. We're scared. And because of that fear, what the Buddhists tend to call it, it's suffering. And if you're in suffering, you're going to contract. You're not going to grow, you're going to contract. For us, is to raise that frequency up to that love frequency, push ourselves up over there. And that's when we see the infinite possibilities. That's when we start expanding. So how is it possible to do it? Is to see, is it possible for us to be compassionate towards ourselves and someone else out there? So you got to have the self-compassion. Now imagine if a friend comes up to you and they are in a bad state. I can say most of the times you would say, you would listen to them. You will not give them a solution of what this is how you resolve it. You stupid idiot. Why did you do it this way?
I'm sorry, man. I would, but I'm listening.
Yeah. So you listen, you show that compassion, you show that love. And then when the person is calmed down, okay, what is the way to move forward from there? Okay, even if it's a small step, which we have to take, small actions, we're not talking about massive actions, we're just taking that small step. Most of our governments, most of the world, most of the way we live, all of us, we always focus on this fear. What if we don't do this and that will happen? We're always thinking about the bad side of things. So it comes down to how we've been educated from a very young age, how our subconscious mind has been conditioned and programmed in such a way that we tend to see this, which we have this bias towards being more fearful than being more in a loving state. So could we implement that? And this is a good time to reflect, what can we do across the globe with every individual? Now, I know there will be people out there who's listening to me and saying, Rohit's gone goo gaga. Well, let them think what they want, but this is what I'm trying to, this is what I'm attempting to do in my life. And yes, I'm fearful at certain points. I'll just give you an example. Like many of us who are in this industry of speaking, training, and coaching, business has wiped out. For me, literally, it's wiped out. I've gone to clients, I've spoken to them and said, okay, let's look at virtual, let's look at online. And they're saying, look, we're not even going to consider any of this because we need to make sure operationally we are functioning. We need to make sure that we can give the salaries to the people out there who are actually doing some kind of work with us. So what do people like us do in this situation? If we give up the trust and the faith, in the universe as a whole, all what we've been doing is total BS, simple as that.
Interesting. Joe, are we still live on Facebook right now, according to you?
I think we are.
Okay, good. I've had a complete shutdown over here, so I don't quite know. And but I'm going to a state of love right now about technology. I agree with you, Rohit. I think that I think weirdly enough, that for us as a species, as a planet that is so that is so ingrained culturally to just get, work, grow, focus on GDP, grow into an unsustainable level. I think we would need this, a wave of unstoppable pandemics or an alien invasion to unite everybody into a state of lovingness that transcends greed and individual stuff, which is why, I mean, when we were talking earlier in a different segment, a different show, we were talking about character development being possibly the purpose for life, and that how do I develop myself to that higher level of me, rather than just play this rat race sort of game all the time. And so, yeah, I think that I'm skeptical that the world can do it, but I do think that it is an individual goal. And if a lot of individuals can do it, then change may happen. The only challenge is for an individual to tell another individual that this would be a good thing to do. They basically get shot down as some sort of evangelical, hippie in La La Land. Not in the real world, not having to pay rent, not with these stresses, although we have bought into the stress game by upping lifestyle all the time beyond what we can actually afford and manage, and then get stuck with stuff rather than having that contentedness. My late mother-in-law lived a very humble life, but volunteered for her local community for 33 years. I mean, 33 years of volunteer work in a very time-consuming capacity. I'm astonished that that's still in the world today, that sort of character is there, but I'm not so sure how long, if this generation right now or the generation coming behind us is doing it. Her generation is doing it. There was a real battling need for Singapore to come from where it was to where it is, and her generation was the one that actually got us there. Whereas the generation now and the generation next are sort of basking in the hard work of that pioneer and that silver generation. So I just I hope for the world that your wish comes true. I think, weirdly enough, I mean, when people are saying, why does a good God let bad things happen? I think it's because it's only when these things happen, like now, that a kindness pandemic and a kindness movement flourishes, because we're so self-centered in our normalcy that we need pain, weirdly enough, to come good.
Yeah, and you see what you're saying is there will be some people who will go the other way as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is where it comes back to now. What do you truly, truly, truly believe in? What's going inside you? I mean, there's I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Wayne Dyer. I mean, I call him Baba Wayne Dyer. Passed away, and he used to do this talk where he used to take an orange, not orange. He used to say, "What if I was to give you an orange and you were to squeeze it?" And the audience will say, "Obviously, orange juice." He said, "Yes. You wouldn't have pineapple juice come out of it. You wouldn't have strawberry juice coming out of it. You'll have orange juice." So what he did was, in comparison to, said, whatever's in you, when you squeeze yourself so much, what is going to come? The harder you squeeze someone, is the hatred going to come up? Is the anger going to come up? Is the love going to come out? So what's inside you, it's going to come out. Now, if the hatred and the anger is going to come out, it's great. At least you're getting rid of it. Sooner or later, the love element, in my view, will come out. See, everyone has
self-destruction, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, see, at the end of the day, we all have a journey in our lives. We all do our best. We all have a learning curve. Some are much faster than the others. And at the same time, we're here to, while we're on this journey, how are we serving and supporting, collaborating, not competition. It's about collaborating with each other. How do we collaborate with each other so that we as a race expand and we grow.
Grow consciously rather than grow in number and
absolutely
destroy the world.
Yes.
Yeah, Buckminster Fuller would write about this concept of perturbation. And perturbation was that a lot of things happen 90 degrees to what's obvious. So, for example, drop the pebble in the water, the pebble goes that way, but the impact and the ripple goes this way. And the squeeze that happens that you were talking about puts pressure on people. And when you look at it at the cellular level, when outside forces are applying external pressure at the cellular level, the cell releases and transforms, which is where an electron moves from one orbit to another, like that. And that movement in the different orbits changes the structure at the atomic level, and that movement is called a quantum leap. And so that structure, there is this structural change that happens in an instant when enough pressure is put. Hence, pressure and heat on coal and carbon turns into diamond. That same sort of thing. Too much pressure, too much heat at the wrong time, you get burnout, you get crushingness, you get destruction. But the right amount can reveal the beauty and the awesomeness that is inside us. What I was, I guess, alluding to before is we need, weirdly enough, this to find our goodness. Look, and like Joe was talking about it on the show the other day with Italian police playing in the streets, or at a particular time of 3 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever, people coming to their balconies and singing together, and the stuff that's happening online at the moment with and Singapore's about to do it as well. This Singapore choir, where everybody's going to sing online together, and it'll be this great thing that's released. Hopefully it'll be great. I don't know. And it's I think we are in what could be coined the creative revolution right now. So we've had the industrial, we've had the tech revolution. This could be the creative revolution, where it's times like this, under this sort of isolation and pressure and even boredom, that we get amazingly creative. And weirdly enough, we need to be bored. We need to be bored to be creative. And we've got so much distraction in our work world, in our hunt for money, in the advertising bombarding us, in the fake news, in the nonsense that's coming on from politicians and everything else, that we're filling ourselves up with stuff that isn't allowing us to express our creativity, our brilliance, our innovation, our amazingness, which can be shared between people, which can make the world a better place, and which can sell amazing books like Billy Bottom Bomb and the Great Pooh of Pottyville by me. Now, but it was just about, it was coming up with creative, funny things. You know what I mean?
Listen, I just want to be balanced, and so I want to talk about how boredom leads to perturbation.
Perturbation. I hope I don't know where you're going with this.
Yeah, no, I just want to remind you that while perturbation's great, feels wonderful, you could go blind. Just make sure that you don't perturbate too much.
Hence the run of these things.
Yeah, that might explain so many things.
Yeah.
Since we're in the toilet, shall we round off the show? We're running into this is past the hour right now.
Yeah, probably.
And I want to say thank you very much.
For some reason.
I was going to say this journey or this conversation has taken us around a very interesting block, and to find it sort of landing here is very interesting. I think it's I can only wish for more conversations to sort of come round to the same place again. Rohit, thank you very much for spending some time with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for letting me be as the last minute guest.
Oh, all guests the last minute is very, very deliberate. It means we get the real you and not some sort of practice rehearsed thing. And we're disorganized.
I love it. Just the way I love it.
I'm just going to sign off from my side of things right now because everything's happening with Tim. I'm just going to say thank you very much, everybody who's joined us today on this Facebook Live. And what we're going to try to do in this particular project is to try and keep on going with this daily shows in the afternoon. We may play around with the time depending on your feedback as well. We'll find out when the best time to do one of these things are. or is. And if you'll give us your feedback, that'll be wonderful. So I'm going to hand it over to Tim to round us off.
Bye, everybody. No, that was it. So yeah, see you guys Monday, 3:15. We're going to be on at 3:15 on Monday at this point. So 3:15 Monday, Singapore time. Join us then. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks, Joe, once again for being awesome. For Rohit for kindly agreeing to be our guest from Dubai. Have a wonderful, stay safe, everybody. Be careful and be care-filled.
Thank you. Take care.
And we're still live because I haven't pressed the button, but I will press that in 3, 2, and bye-bye for now.